Really looking forward to our co-main event, this week's Bellator 257 card. As always, one half of your hosting duo, Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. To my right, your left, vice versa, Matt Allen. You can find him on the respective socials at Matt Allen FNP. And Matt, in our co-main event on one side of the bracket, the winner of this fight will be taking on Darth Vader. We have Beastin 25-8 / overtime Corey Anderson taking on the Bellator newcomer Dovletdzhan Yagshimuradov. Matt, straight up love the fight. As soon as I saw the weird silhouette on the Bellator website just last year that Yagshimuradov would end up in Bellator, my mind was blown. This is the former ACA champ, and if you've ever paid attention to the organization, they have some very, very good light heavyweight fighters. We've seen great prospects coming from Russia, including one of the fighters that Yagshimuradov had fought in the past, Magomed Ankalaev, but there are very quality names on his record, and there's lots of great wins against those quality opponents for Dovletdzhan.
I mean, yeah, look at Joachim Christensen, exactly. He was coming off a knockout. Now, yes, he did get knocked out in under a minute by Dominic Reyes, but that's going to happen. Dominic Reyes is really good. And then he loses to Dovletdzhan. This is a really interesting fight because for Corey Anderson, I don't want to say they gave him kind of an underhand toss in his Bellator debut, but there's not a lot of gimme fights until...
An aging middleweight kickboxer.
Exactly. And the fact, like, you could just tell when Melvin Manhoef walked out to the cage, you're like, well, obviously that man doesn't belong in 205 pounds. And just the whole fight, it went exactly how you would expect it. Melvin Manhoef still has oddly fast hands for the size and age of him, but he would flurry, and the Corey Anderson gonna take you down, rinse and repeat. And that's what makes this fight really, really fun, because for Yagshimuradov, he can have some of those flurries like Melvin Manhoef, and his hand speed is one of the things that I really picked up on. Is he has far better hand speed than Corey Anderson. I would even say he has better power than Corey Anderson. Now, yes, Corey Anderson not really known as a striker, but we all know what Anderson's going to do in this fight. He's going to try to get the fight to the mat. So for Yagshimuradov, it's going to be really interesting. One of the things I picked up on was naturally he does carry his hands very low, and a lot of the time, especially against top tier competition, I would say, well, that's a terrible idea. But against Corey Anderson, that might actually be your best path to victory. And it reminds me of when Jared Gooden had fought Nurmagomedov. And Gooden the whole time, yes, he was the superior striker. He just kept his hands down the whole time because he had such disdain for the striker Nurmagomedov. Turns out he could strike pretty well. But going into this fight, that's the best way to defend a takedown. If your hands are naturally low and you're not fighting the most dangerous striker in the world, just your hands being low are going to help you with your reaction time, with your footwork, and with some of that forward pressure that Corey Anderson's going to bring to you. And the other thing that Yagshimuradov can do, he can reverse takedown attempts really well. He's great at digging both underhooks, and he's got these weird kind of hip tosses from when guys shoot on him. It's just a really interesting thing. Am I predicting he's going to sweep a takedown attempt from Corey Anderson, get on top? No, but those are little details in his game that he might be able to take advantage of Corey Anderson. Because the one thing about Anderson is, yes, his nickname might have changed throughout his career, but his fighting style very much has stayed the same from his earlier tenure on The Ultimate Fighter all the way up through to his time with Bellator.
You don't like to see it out of Yagshimuradov, where he's on such an impressive win streak, 8 fights in a row. His last loss was to Mikhail Rogozin, that was 2-0, and he got finished by him in M1 Challenge 61. But that was 6 years ago, almost, to this point. So for Yagshimuradov, he's continued to win. He's continued to win impressively. And out of his fights, I mean, plenty of 5-round experience, going back to his fight against Batraz Agnayev to win the belt. That one back in 2018. So it's been 3 fights in a row, 5-round pace. And if you look at it for Beastin 25-8, when he took on Melvin Manhoef, yikes, that was a 3-round fight. It is what it is in a main event. Bellator does those all the time. It's really weird. Don't do it anymore. And hey, have a Canadian plan for your fights instead of having them for free on YouTube nice. Like me, but it is what it is. That's also pretty cool. For Corey Anderson, the way out of the UFC was so weird because this is a top 10 ranked fighter that's beaten really good competition. I mean, you look at the 5 on in for this guy. Glover Teixeira, Alir Latifi, Johnny Walker, and if you want to throw it before that, he had Patrick Cummins' 6th last fight. And then you lose to Blachowicz, who we now know is he's a pretty good old fellow out of Poland, and then he beats Melvin Manhoef. For Corey Anderson, really, really big names. And I mean, the losses. Jimmy Manuwa, people are going to get knocked out by him. Ovin St. Preux, you're going to lose to him. Shogun Rua, you don't like it. That was a really bad performance.
There's another on there, too. Corey Anderson's also a victim of... this fight just pains me to bring up because I do think Corey Anderson is a very good fighter. Jean Vellante knocked him out, and his losses that have aged the worst, I do think that's up there.
Yikes, old body punch Jean. But when we look at this fight, you're right. For Dovletdzhan Yagshimuradov, A, it's not often that you hear from fighters out of Turkmenistan, but B, A lot of people are predicting him to be a dark horse in this entire tournament, and I love to see it because this guy, like I said, I've been high on him for a really long time. So if we have a look at the odds for this fight, it might surprise somebody, but Corey Anderson opened a plus 120.
I'm surprised.
That line dropped immediately. Anderson now a minus 184 favorite Thursday night before the fight. On Friday for Yagshimuradov, open a minus 150. He's now at a plus 149 with a bit of a dip here recently in those odds. So more people piling on with Corey Anderson. Out of the overall Tapology votes, 810 of them, 78% Beastin 25-8, 69% going with the decision. For the 22% that have Yagshimuradov, 70% by knockout. Matt, I think Dovletdzhan Yagshimuradov can win a decision in this one.
Oh, no, I disagree with you on that, because this is my problem. In a 5-round atmosphere, it's really hard to say, hey, you have to defend... Basically, this is what the proposition is. Fight 10 minutes with Corey Anderson, then you have to defend 3 takedowns from one of the best wrestlers in the division. I think that is a very hard ask. Now, I do agree with what the fans are saying, though. If Corey Anderson's going to win, more likely than not by decision. That's how Corey Anderson wins fights. And here's the thing about Corey Anderson. Is it that he has a suspect chin, or does he just get caught clean a lot? Because I do think it's a bit of both cases. Because here's the thing. People like to say Luke Rockhold doesn't have a good chin. And I don't think he has a great chin by any means. But look back at some of the strikes that have knocked Luke Rockhold out. Well, he got hit with an overhand left from Yoel Romero. That would knock a lot of people out. He got hit with a clean left hook from Michael Bisping. Would knock people out. With Corey Anderson, you look at some of the people. Well, Jimmy Manuel won and lost all of his fights by knockouts. There's no shame in that. And Ovince St. Preux was losing that fight until he lands one of the most beautiful head kicks of all time, I must say. But still, Corey Anderson... Even when he is in there and loses against some of the best fighters, he's still having success against those fighters. And I do think that's a really important key, because if he just went in there and got absolutely mopped by Ovince St. Preux, then yeah, I probably wouldn't pick him in this fight. But the fact that I saw him not only go out there and strike with OSP a little bit, but he was just able to out-grapple him to such a degree that in a 25-minute atmosphere, I do just think that that kind of a fight really plays into Corey Anderson's hand. And Corey Anderson might have been a way better fighter if he was fighting 25-minute fights earlier on in his UFC career, because it would allow him to kind of pace himself a little bit more, not just jump into the fire so quick. So for me, I am ever so slightly going to pick Corey Anderson, but this is the case for me. Corey Anderson, his whole time in the UFC, said, I want to fight the top guys. I want to fight the top guys. I want to fight the top guys. If you beat Yagshimuradov, you're only fighting top guys from here on out, Corey Anderson. So if you don't do well in the next round of this
tournament, so yeah.
But if you don't do well in the next leg of this tournament, when you do fight either Rumble, Yoel, Bader.
He has to fight Bader.
I mean the whole way through the tournament. These are the guys who we're going to be comparing Corey Anderson with, and these are the guys that Corey Anderson's wanted to fight for his whole career. So it is nice that hopefully, if Anderson is able to win this fight, he will finally be able to get in there with some of those guys that we did talk about in the UFC.
If you like, well, not no time Volkan Oezdemir, but if you like overtime Beastin 25-8, the 3-fight win streak before Johnny Walker of Pat Cummins, Teixeira, and Ilir Latifi, those are very, very good fighters, but fighters that can implement that wrestling and that grappling, and they can wear on most of their opponents. And Corey Anderson looked like an absolute world beater through that stretch where he was beating guys, beating Johnny Walker impressively, and then, of course, losing to Jan Blachowicz. The Manhoff fight, I don't care. That was a tune-up fight to get Corey Anderson back and going. Great to see it. 3-round fight for Yagshimuradov. Again, does have a little bit of a layoff coming into this one. His last fight was in December of 2019, so he took all of last year off, found a home here in Bellator. That news didn't really break. It was just kind of like, boom, now he's here, and then what are they going to do with him? Oh, by the way, he's also in this tournament. But for me, I really like the well-roundedness. Positionally, I really like Yagshimuradov, and I think, like you said, again, keeping the hands low, mixing in some of the striking, and using his footwork and the cage to his advantage, I really do like him in this one. So I will edge Dovletdzhan Yagshimuradov to get the win. You're going with the man formerly known as Beastin 25-8.
Here's my disclaimer. Corey Anderson could win 4 rounds, 4 minutes, and 59 seconds of this fight and still find a way to get knocked out. Corey Anderson's done it in the past. He could do it again in the future. That's all I'm saying. But no, I do like Anderson in this one.
Matt, not feeling confident, still feeling confident, and unable to understand how an 8-person tournament works. But, Matt, it was an impressive performance from you, and maybe it'll be an impressive performance with Corey Anderson. We tease, we joke, and we got a lot more show to get to. So if you're just watching this video out on its own, make sure you check out some of the other great content with Fight Night Picks. If you're tuning in for the whole kit and caboodle, make sure you tune in for Vadim Nemkov and Phil Davis. Let's throw it on over to that. And as we always say, Matt, Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.